Welcome back everyone for an exciting retro restore. This time we're going to be taking apart and cleaning this Atari 2600 as requested by Constance in comments of previous retro restores. We'll also go over how to get one of these hooked up to a modern TV, because that can be one of the kind of difficult things to do these days if you want to get one of these, if you're not forking out the money for one of the Atari 2600 Plus systems that just came out. So when we flip this over, there should be 8 screws, but for some reason this one's missing 3 of its screws. But we have 2 screws here on the bottom, then on the front we have 2 screws. On each side we have a screw, and then there's a screw in each of these kind of center back spots. So we'll go ahead and take out all of these screws on the outer parts. So then with the outer screws apart, you can leave these ones on here. Flip it over, and then you can take the top part off, which it just kind of lifts up. Then you have this nice system with all these cobwebs and all sorts of other weird looking stuff in here. One of these is your best friend in an instance like this, so make sure if you're using one of these little can of air thingies to spray all that dust away, that it's in a well ventilated area. Now I just got this all sprayed off. One thing to note is there are these little pieces on each of these. Make sure you're careful. Probably remove those before you use a little can of air on it. And then the top case, especially in these openings here, that's where a lot of stuff builds up. But we're going to go ahead and just wipe it down with a Clorox wipe in a bit. But let's move on and get this taken care of. Let's go ahead and unplug the video cord from the board. And then there's a screw on each side of this metal casing that you need to undo. The one on this side of the metal can be a little bit tricky to get pulled out, so make sure you have tweezers or some sort of other way to extract it easier. And then before we remove the board, go ahead and take all of these little seals off of here. Just kind of set them to the side for now. Then the final step for removing the board is undoing this little cable right here. You just grab it and pull straight back, and then it comes disconnected. And then you can remove the board. Because a lot of people like seeing what these boards look like. Then with the board removed, we can take the video cable and just kind of feed it out through this opening in the back. Then under the board there is some kind of gross stuff, so get that sprayed out too. Then the only 2 screws remaining on the bottom are how we drop the other part out. So we will remove those screws now. So after those are unscrewed, we'll lift that up, and there we go. We have an empty cannibalized case now, and we have our little box of joy. I'll do it off camera, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe down the bottom and the top with Clorox wipes just to get all this grossness out of them. So if you have a precision cleaning kit, that kind of helps out a lot more, but for the most part, the bottom is pretty clean. The top part, you can pop this panel off with using these tabs here. I try not to do that just because it's old plastic and I don't want to break it. So usually for the top, I'll just use a Clorox wipe to get everything cleaned off. And then Q-tips, maybe a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to get inside of each of these areas. And then in where these the 2 vents are. So let's see if there's anything gross in here. There are cobwebs on the board for this. But we'll see if anything needs to be cleaned thoroughly inside of this. Undo these 4 screws here. Luckily with this system, a nice Phillips screwdriver is all you really need to get to everything. We will go over the screws in the end, because the screws that were, like this was missing some screws and some of them were not put in the right areas. Here we go. Oh, that doesn't look that bad. That just kind of popped right off. take off those final 2 screws that are on the bottom. And we get to see what kind of fun's waiting for us on the other side of the board. And then lift the board up. That is the Atari right there. Looks kind of cool and kind of simple and everything. What we'll do is give it a quick spray with a can of air and then use the isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips to get the rest of this clean. With a can of air, make sure you get where the cartridge goes pretty well. Just say the main focus is on this, getting this part of the board, and then getting the cartridge area. Make sure you get under this too, because there can be some kind of gross buildup under there. Now, iFixit does sell a nice little precision cleaning kit. Some of the most useful things in it, there's this brush, which we won't really be able to use on this, but this little thingy to shoot air in there to get dust out. And then this small thing here, can't get the camera to focus on it that well, but this is kind of like a, almost like a pipe cleaner. I've used these quite a bit to get cartridge trays cleaned out. What we'll do is just kind of take that and move it around in there. Just kind of scrape off any possible dust that's in there. Then use our little air blaster to shoot anything that broke loose out. Then it goes out through the bottom, so we'll just spray that out. Now we got the board pretty clean. The metal that it was inside has some crust in there. We don't really want to use like a Clorox wipe or anything like that on there, so I recommend just paper towel or, I don't know, a Swiffer duster if you have one of those. Okay, so that's looking good now. You just want to kind of use something that doesn't leave a bunch of dust behind, so like tissues, things like that. Wouldn't really recommend. So we'll go ahead and feed this back into here. And then the whole inside of the case just uses these short screws. So we're just going to grab 2 of these and put it back in there. Just hit these 2 screw holes on this side of it. And then the same with this metal, you just kind of want to wipe it off so it's not all dusty. And the way this goes in place, this tab points towards the board and it's at the opening. So it just kind of slides right in on there. Then we want to put the 4 screws back in here. And the way we do it, there are the 2 that go in the back. And then the other 2 go in the side front ones. Not all the way in the front, but the side front ones. But I do want to note there are, like, from ones that I've seen online, there should be 2 more screws up there, but there are screws missing from this one, so that's why we're just doing the 4 that were in there to begin with. So then we'll put our little piece of cardboard back on here. It goes with this covering the bottom part of the board. I don't think we need this little piece of paper anymore, though. Huh. We definitely don't need this piece of paper. It was an Ohio lottery paper that was that was inside the board on here. That is something else. So that's definitely a piece of history. I looked it up a bit, and Ronald Nabokowski, it was in the 1980s that he was the director of Ohio Lottery. Definitely interesting finding that inside an old Atari. So now what we do, since this was put back together, we will set it back down in here. You have to feed all the controller ports through, and then it just kind of sets down. And then be careful when you flip it over, you have to get the 2 screws in there. And from everything I could see online, looks like the screws with the washers are the ones that are supposed to go in these areas. I could be wrong, let me know in the comments if that's completely wrong. Then the next step we're going to do is slide our video cable back through here. So when you feed this through here, stick it through this area right here, and then also slide it down on the side over here. And I got this cleaned up pretty well off camera. Pretty much what you want to focus on, just get around all these little levers, get them all cleaned up, and if there's just any weird gunk on the board, just get that cleaned up too. When you're putting the board down, make sure you lift this up just so it's out of the way and doesn't get pinched in there. And then we have the screw holes for our 2 remaining tiny screws to put in there. So we got one on this side of the metal shield, and then that one on the other side of the metal shield. Then we can plug our video cable back in. So I'm going to lift that up from there, tuck the slack around that, and then put that back in there. There we go, that's nice and secure. Then after the cord's put back in place, what you need to do is get this little pin connector hooked back in. And be careful when you do it, make sure everything is aligned perfectly, because there's not really a way for it to latch in place. So you don't want to be like one pin off or just kind of bending pins as you put it in. As an example, if you take that, put it like that, it'll feel like it's in there in place, but as you can see, it's over a pin, or over 2 pins. So the alignment of this is what matters quite a bit for making sure everything works. There we go, no pins showing through the side there, everything is on there, and it's fully flush with the connector part. Then our final piece before we put it back together, we have these little washer things put back on here. There we go, we got all 6 of those put back on, and now to put the front of the case in place. So the front, what you want to do is line up with all these little levers. You can see the levers through there, and then you kind of push it back, and then it will line up in the front of the case right here. Then you flip it over and put the screws in. So this is where we are somewhat out of luck, because this only had the 3 screws on the bottom, and 1 screw is longer than the other ones. So I'm just going to use these shorter screws on these front 2 spots, and then get one of these, get the longer one in one of these back spots, and order screws to replace all these ones. And you don't want to make any of this stuff too tight, because this is old plastic. So we have those 2 in that front part, and we'll just slide this one in here. And in these 4 spots, they do go in at an angle. Okay, so we got the screws on, and now to show the secret of how to actually get this to work on a modern TV. So before we test this, we do need to go over kind of how the games are and to get them clean, where we have, I mean, the best game ever, E.T. This one, the way that you clean it, you can't actually take these cartridges apart without damaging things. So if you take like tweezers or something, you can push in on there, and that opens up so you can try to get some sort of cleaning, like a precision cleaning tool, something like that in there. And then one like the Coleco Donkey Kong, that one, the chip is already exposed there, so you don't need to do any sorcery to get that working. You can just kind of clean it. You can't scrub it that well, can't put a lot of pressure on it, but still, it's a lot easier to clean than the other ones that have those shields in the way. But the nice thing too is, for the most part, the ones that have those shields in the way, there'd be a lower chance of those ones getting dirty. So we're going to clean the Donkey Kong one inside really fast. Just using our favorite Q-tip with isopropyl alcohol. Kind of putting a little bit of pressure on here, but don't really want to snap anything. Glad we cleaned it, that was pretty gross. It's actually looking kind of shiny in there now. I don't think the camera can pick it up though. So now the way to get these all hooked up and tested. So the first part in this process, need to find an old VCR. Now this one I got at a garage sale for, I think it was 50 cents. If it's not garage sale season, thrift stores or other places might have them for maybe flea markets. Yeah, they might have them for anywhere from like $1 to $5. If you have to pay any more than $5, then it's probably not worth it. Look somewhere else. Then we're just going to use these two for right now, just because, I had these up here for the Nintendo to be hooked up. On the back, we have this row of cables for out, this row for in. What we're going to do is plug these into the out. And then the other end of these cables, we plug into one of the AV to HDMI converters, which does require USB power on there. And that has HDMI output. Then we'll plug the power in for the VCR and hope things don't catch on fire. Then the next step is you take the Atari, just set it on top of there or to the side, whatever works the best. Find its little cable connector. And then on the back of this VCR at least, there's an out and there's an in. We want this to go on the in. Then we grab the funny looking power adapter for the Atari. The reason I say it's funny looking is because the little plug parts are here and that comes out through the top of the label area, where a lot of other connectors, that part comes out through the bottom. And then we grab our game that we just cleaned and hope that all this stuff works together. Turn the VCR on with the power button on the front. Too bad I don't have a remote for it. Has a language selection. I don't know what all the buttons do on here, but on this VCR, if you turn it off and then turn it back on, then that goes away. And then because it's old Atari, there's a channel selection on here. You want to go to channel 3. So then with everything situated and with that on channel 3, we turn the power on. And nothing happens. You know, because Donkey Kong was kind of crusty and everything when I cleaned it, just for funsies, let's see if we have any better luck with the best game in the world, E.T. for Atari. Hey, it came right up. Then we have to do game select. Oh, game reset, not game select. Shows how much I know about Atari. And there we go, we have our little E.T. walking around. Oh, he's a giraffe. Heh, that's kind of funny. Whoa, someone's chasing. Oh, he's carrying him away. I have no clue what's even going on in this game. Is he in a jail or something? He can just get out. Oh, he's in a pit. Okay, this game's kind of funny. I'll definitely have to try it a little bit more, but I hope this was helpful for everyone and that you got to find some sort of entertainment seeing E.T. go on there. I'm going to try to figure out what's going on with the Donkey Kong cartridge, why that didn't fire up, but we have a working Atari, and also with the help of a VCR, you can get an Atari 2600 working on a modern TV. Whoa, E.T.'s flying! So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and have a nice day.